Hi, back again, Dr. Bones, talking about nutrition. So earlier we were talking about the water-soluble vitamins, the B vitamins, an array of B vitamins, actually 8 different known B vitamins that we need. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid, so these are the water-soluble vitamins. And then we mentioned the fat-soluble vitamins. So we had 4 fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. There's a mnemonic device that you can use to remember the fat-soluble vitamins. Some people like to use DEAK, D-E-A-K, DEAK, but I like Katie. Katie sounds cute, and it's an easier way, I think. So it's K-A-D-E, Katie. So Katie for the fat-soluble vitamins. All right, now let's talk a little bit about minerals. All right, minerals, you probably remember the periodic table. So your days of playing with the periodic table, let's go to that camera. So the macro minerals, these are minerals that you would need on the gram scale. All right, so we've got calcium and sodium. Most of us get too much sodium. Potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, sulfur, chlorine, right? Or chloride, I should say, because chloride will go with sodium, right? Sodium chloride is table salt. So if you get one of these, you always get one of these. So macro minerals. So we're talking about on the gram scale. What about some of the micro minerals or trace minerals? These are minerals that you would need on the milligram to microgram scale. So you don't need a whole lot of these. So we're talking about things like iron and manganese, cobalt. Remember, cobalt is part of vitamin B12. Copper, fluorine, iodine. Of course, there's some suspect about fluorine. Do we really need it or not? Selenium may be useful for heart health. Zinc, very useful. And here I have in parentheses some that may or may not be really needed. We're still studying these. Boron, we've got silicon, we've got stannous or tin, and we have nickel. And there are others as well. All right, so we talked about 3 steps basically involved with nutrition. Step 1 is eating and drinking. We went to step 2, which we just mentioned, the foods into nutrients and energy. All right, so you're going to be converting foods into nutrients and energy. And finally, step 3 is once you've got these nutrients, you've got to transport them through the body. So 1, eating and drinking. 2, foods into nutrients. I don't know if we should bring this out front, probably be easier to see. So we've got nutrition, again, 3 steps, eating and drinking, foods into nutrients, all right? And then finally, step 3, transporting nutrients, all right? So here we go, transporting nutrients. All right, it's never as easy as you hope. So transporting nutrients, all right, that's the final step. That's where you've got the nutrients in the blood and they're going to all of the cells of the body. All right, so on that note, we're talking about the digestive system. All right, so we're saying in step 2, which is foods into nutrients and energy, how do you do that? You do that through the digestive system. All right, so the stomach, the intestines, small and large. What we're talking about when we get into the stomach is hydrochloric acid and certain enzymes, especially enzymes in the small intestine, all right, over here. And finally, we're going to flush it out with water in the large intestine. So let's go to the next thing, which is the digestive system. Here we've got my friend with his insides out. So we're going to be eating. So you put the food in your mouth, it goes into the esophagus, and of course down into the stomach, and then finally into the small intestine, and cleaning out through the large intestine and so on. So we'll be kind of playing with that in our description here. So you've seen that from your school days. So the first thing you need to do is eat. So you're going to be chewing on food and adding saliva to food. So let's take, for example, something that you would be eating. Oh, I don't know, let's try some celery. Here we've got some celery over here. you're crunching on the celery. So we've got this guy crunching on the celery. Let's see if we can do this here. You're at home crunching on the celery, crunch, crunch, crunch. What exactly can you get out of celery? Well, unfortunately, you can only really get water out of celery and some minerals because you can't digest the sugars in celery because it's cellulose, and cellulose needs an enzyme called cellulase. And human beings don't readily have cellulase. So celery is great to eat, but it's not going to provide any energy, all right? So what exactly can you use for energy? Obviously, I've got certain things that you might find more flavorful when you actually eat them. Yes, while you're eating them, they become more flavorful as you eat them. Rice and potatoes. If you've ever eaten a potato is starch. Rice is starch, all right? So when you start eating the potato or start eating the rice, you are going to be converting the starch in the potato into sugars with an enzyme called amylase, all right? So amylase in your saliva, you're eating your potato. By the way, I would probably not want to eat a full-size potato, or don't do like Frankie Frog, who likes to eat everything whole like that. So you, in your mouth, you've got saliva, you've got amylase, you're crunching or masticating the food, so mastication is crunching the food with your teeth. You're also putting in your saliva, all right? So enzymes, in this case amylase, is going to start digesting the starch, and you start tasting the sugar, maltose, all right? So you start tasting sugary. So it's good to actually chew and let that food take a little journey in your mouth there before it starts to go down the esophagus. So peristalsis down the esophagus, and then of course into the stomach, where you really start the digestion process. But like I said, certain foods you can start digesting in the mouth. All right, so let's go through the digestive system here. Let's go on to the other side. So we've got the esophagus. You could zoom in here a little bit, I guess. All right, so here we go. So we've got the esophagus, where peristalsis is actually bringing the food into the stomach. Now in the stomach, you've got hydrochloric acid. The hydrochloric acid is going to start breaking down proteins, all right? But you also have certain enzymes that are going to start working in the stomach. Digesting fats, we call these lipases. You can start digesting proteins. In addition to HCl, you've got some peptidases, all right? So pepsin is one of the proteolytic enzymes in the stomach, all right? So starting the digestion process in the stomach, the mixing, all right? So you've got the mixing going on in the stomach. The stomach is just a big muscle, all right? It's called a smooth muscle, and it's mixing these foods, creating a sloshy kind of thing we call ingesta, I should say, ready to be transported into the small intestine, where most of the digestion of foods takes place. So here we're talking about a lot of enzymes are going to be involved in digesting food. So proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So we start digesting here. Actually, we start digesting in the mouth, all right, carbohydrates, more in the stomach, and then finally into the small intestine, the majority of digestion takes place. So we're talking about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, proteolytic enzymes for proteins, breaking them up into peptides, which are smaller proteins, and amino acids. And we have lipases digesting fats into glycerol, which is a trialcohol, and fatty acids. So we'll be talking about them when we examine some of the molecules. Finally, into the large intestine, kind of the flushing out system where water is reabsorbed, all right? Here we have the ascending colon, here we have the transverse colon, here we have the descending colon into the rectum and then out. At least do that once a day, all right? So I'll see you in the next segment. Take care.